Yes, we need an ambulance right away. That two people believe they're shot.
Okay, okay, you think they got shot, you say?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's a lady with a gun.
There's a lady with a gun? Where?
Yes. It's coming out of the house right now.
Okay.
Two people shot outside.
Okay.
People shot outside.
Okay. Where is the lady with the gun?
Coming out on the street right now.
Is she still shooting?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Love and Murder, the weekly true crime podcast discussing relationships gone terribly wrong, where our motto is,
you are either someone's last love or their first murder.
I am your host, Kai.
I'm a guy who likes my steak medium rare.
Yeah, if you want to die, eat meat that's not cooked.
I didn't say rare, I said medium rare.
That's still disgusting.
No, it's delicious.
Burn it. Burn my meat. No. I don't want any pink. Anyways, we're getting off topic. As a reminder, our show discusses true crime cases told in the form of a story with mystery, suspense, and just a little tiny bit of humor sprinkled on top, but never at the expense of the victim. Be sure to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're on, as well as give us a 5-star review right now so you don't forget. But if you're new here, then obviously listen to the episode first, and then please rate us. And also, welcome. In today's episode, I'm telling you about a case of mental health, emotional breakdowns, and the outcome of not allowing yourself to get help. But first, head on over to patreon.com/loveandmurder and become a subscriber of $5 and above. You'll be able to see our last bonus episode of an interview with a sex offender. Can you believe she raped her son? Ugh, so disgusting. You'll also be able to hear of the last episode we did, which was Sixto Balbuena, episode number 71. They actually got like a more behind the scenes look than when the free episode went out. So head on over to our Patreon so you can become an exclusive lamb, patreon.com/loveandmurder, and we'll talk more about Patreon later. And now, on to the show. Christy Bird was born in Decatur, Alabama on May 2nd, 1974, to a single mother named Rebecca Marie Bird. Nothing was actually mentioned about her father. I couldn't find that at all. And Jason Sheats was born and raised in Trinity, Alabama, just 15 minutes away from Christy. Although I couldn't find exactly how they met, numerous stories said that they met when they were young and they had this fairy tale meeting. Trust me, they talked about having the fairy tale meeting so much and how much their kids looked up to them and all that stuff, but nobody actually talked about the actual meeting.
So I'm guessing this is one of those cases where we don't really know a whole lot about them until whatever happens, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's some backstory, but not really a lot. Y'all know how I like to tell our cases. There's not that much here. Their friends reported that when they were younger, they just knew that Jason and Christy were going to be together. They just knew it. They would always tell stories of how they met and it was so romantic. And like I said, this was something that their daughters looked up to. So, if you hear your parents met in a certain way, you probably want to experience that for yourself. So, as you figured, they were married and had a wonderful marriage. They had 2 daughters, Madison Tyler Sheats, born October 2nd, 1998, and Taylor Aston Sheats, born April 19th, 1994. And the couple moved to Houston, where the girls grew up. Christy loved her kids, loved being a wife, and just generally loved her life. Both Taylor and Madison actually had a very amazing childhood. Both of their parents loved them. There was no reports of abuse. Christy actually was on social media a lot. I think she used it as, her kind of a journal. You know how some people are like that, where they just tell everything about their lives on social media?
Yeah, where if you wanted to rob their house, you can just look and see when they're going on vacation through Facebook.
Look, she's trying to brag about her daughters. You're turning it into something dark. So she was kind of that kind of person who said, talked about her family on social media a lot, shared a bunch of pictures, talked about the girls' accomplishments and what they were doing in life. She just put that all on social media. So I don't do that. I started doing that in the beginning, but I stopped when I realized who's on social media. So
good.
Anyways, now it's through her Facebook post that we, find out that Taylor wanted to be an artist. It was actually her dream and her passion. But in the meantime, she was a full-time teacher at a daycare. And then we also found out that Madison loved her part-time babysitting job and was really, really serious about her academics. Like, you wish your child would be like that. All was going well for the family until tragedy struck in early 2012. Christy's grandfather died. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, grandparents die, they get old. But Christy and her grandfather had a very, very special bond. He was one of her most favorite people in the world. He'd actually been a very significant part of her life and was the reason she was the person she was today. So after he died, Christy, as you can imagine, fell into a deep depression.
Yeah, it happens, but that doesn't make it any less devastating when it does happen.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I was sad when my grandparents died. I think it was more, I don't know. I think I have more of a practical mind, and my grandparents were like 90s in their 90s. So I was like, okay, it was time. So it was just sad, but I was more sad. What really hurt me was to see my mom's reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what really broke me.
How old was her grandfather when he died? Do we know?
No, it didn't say how old her grandfather was.
I was going to say, 'cause if you die as a quote-unquote young grandparent, that's extra terrible. Like if he was, I don't know, 65, 70, that's kind of young for a grandparent.
Yeah, but one of my grandfathers died when he was 99 or 100 or something, and one of my cousins took it really hard. So it's still, it just depends on how close to the grandparent you are. So you
get so used to them being around too, and you might say to yourself, it's not going to last forever. But in the back of your head, you subconsciously probably haven't really come to terms with the fact that it can't last forever.
You're just never prepared. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You just never. Yeah. You can never be prepared. So while trying to properly grieve the loss without keeping her in a constant state of depression, another tragedy struck. And her best friend, her mother, died a few months later.
Damn.
So it's grandfather died, mom died, just within months of each other. So
that's horrible.
Yeah. After this, Christy was not the same. Her depression worsened. She experienced frequent mood swings. She barely ate, and she even tried to commit suicide numerous times. She ended up staying away from her friends because she was really social before. But after this, she started staying away from friends, family, and she was actually even put in a mental health facility a couple times when they realized nothing else could be done.
That's one of the challenging things about depression too. And as someone who, experiences depression, I can say it's the worst part. You want to, at least in my case, you want to have social encounters with people and see the people in your life, but there are days where you just don't have energy to do that, or you just can't bring yourself to do that. And sometimes for me, it's I don't have the energy, or it's I just feel like I'm going to be there and just be depressed the whole time and ruin it for everybody else. So a lot of times in cases with depression, and again, I'm not an expert, I'm just talking from personal experience. A lot of times with the cases of depression, it's the first thing that gets, affected is your social life.
I've lived with depression, I think, my whole life, but for the first time, I actually have someone who helps me through it. So they say they see when I'm spiraling, so they help me not go into that state. So for the first time, I don't really go into a depressive state. So it's really interesting to see both sides of the coin. I'll say it that way.
Yeah, it definitely affects everybody differently. I mean, there are the trends, and it most commonly does this or that, but at the end of the day, it's always a unique case depending on the person. So
yeah, definitely. Now, just like I'm saying, I have someone who in my life who fights for me, Jason fought for her and stopped her from killing herself. Tried to be her strong shoulder for her to lean on, and still at the same time be there for his family because they have kids at this time. But unfortunately, nothing would make Christy feel better. She just stayed in that constant state of depression. And if you're in a state of depression, you kind of got to fight to pull yourself out because nobody can do it for you. You have to do the work and fight for yourself. So if you refuse to fight, then it's not going to get better.
You're just going to constantly sink down further.
Exactly. So it became a norm in the house for the family to make like service calls to get the police out to the house so that Christy wouldn't hurt herself. And it was actually on record that there were 14 calls that went out to the police, and some of them were even filed as, quote, mental crisis dealing with Christy. 14 calls. I mean, she lost 2 significant people in her life back to back. You know what I'm saying? So I couldn't even imagine dealing with that. Doctors put her on medication for anxiety and depression, but even that seemed to not work. She actually ended up becoming violent when she'd never been violent before. She drank a lot, which shouldn't be done, period.
Especially if you're on medication.
Exactly. Especially when you're on medication, and especially when you're on mental health medication. So she's just doing all the wrong things. By June of 2016, after 4 years of violence, pushing away, and constant arguments with no resolution in sight, the marriage had soured, and both Jason and Christy were ready for a divorce. According to Christy, Jason didn't take her feelings seriously, but according to Jason, he'd tried everything, but Christy was determined to push him away, which that's another sign of depression. You have tunnel vision. To you, everybody's leaving you and nobody's coming to see you, and you know what I'm saying? But to the rest of the world, they're like, they've been trying and trying and trying, but you are stuck in your constant state of sadness that you're not even seeing that. And especially if you're not trying to fight through it.
That's part of the drowning too, is it just gets worse and worse for you no matter how you look at it. It can't get better until you look at it in a different light. And you might have to force yourself to do that. You're
going to have to.
Well, some people just, when you get so deep down, and there are some people where medication doesn't really help, because medication doesn't do the same thing for everybody. It doesn't help everybody the way that it acts with you. There's a whole science on how medication works, and that's why we have pharmacists. But some people, like myself, I was able to kind of snap myself out of it enough to realize I needed help, and I got help. Other people, like, they really have to fight to realize what's going on and what they need to do. We talk about all the time, Kai. It's okay to admit you need help. Some people can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, some people can't and some people won't. So there's 2 categories of people in there.
There's that too, yes, that is correct.
Okay, this part I'm going to speak from experience. Sometimes you're so used to feeling a certain way, you've just grown accustomed to feeling that when you finally feel happy, you actually get scared because you're like, okay, what's coming next? When's this going to stop? And you start thinking about all the negatives, which then puts you in another spiral.
Yeah, you get into a pattern where there's a lot of ups and downs where, you know, you might feel okay one day, but then you're depressed again the next day. That's an up and down. You get accustomed to that too. Where once you start feeling better, you're like, you know, or oh geez, if I'm feeling great right now, what's going to blindside me and make it 10 times worse?
Yeah, and so, yeah, you get stuck in those patterns. So there's some people who can't get out of it, and some people who refuse to get out of it due to fear. So we don't know which one Christy is. I'm guessing, but this is just me talking my opinion here. I'm guessing she refused to get out of it. Maybe she felt guilty, that is, she didn't feel sad anymore, that, you know, that means she didn't love her family or whatever. But I have a feeling she was one of the people who refused to get out of the depressive state.
You know what, Kai, while you're on that subject, I want to say something. I heard this from, I know it was a TV show, but it rang with me so well that I kind of want to spread the word on it. We're going to put in the description of the episode where this quote came from. But the quote is, "It's different for everybody, but one day, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next month, maybe not next year, you're going to realize you haven't thought about it for a while. And then you'll realize that you can go without thinking about it. And that's when you're going to start healing." I will figure out where I heard that from and get back to you so we can put it in the information of the episode. Because I live by that quote now. Like, that's how I keep things from bothering me. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to deal with it for now, but eventually I'll be able to move on. That's how you got to look at it sometimes.
Yeah, and then, you know, you won't think about it for a long time. But then there might be a day where something triggers a memory, but you have to fight to not let it pull you down. Because it's always going to be there. Yeah, and that's completely fine. It's always going to be there. But you need to use your tools necessary so that it doesn't pull you down. And that's just part of steps of dealing with depression. Now, although this was a sad time for Christy and Jason, their daughter Taylor was going to get married at the end of the month. So, something that's happy that's going on, and you're going through a tough time with you and your husband or whatever, you're not going to tell your children. So they decided not to tell the girls that they were thinking of getting a divorce so that Taylor could still have a happy time in dealing with her marriage, looking forward to her marriage, planning her wedding, everything like that. And, her sister was probably like her maid of honor. I was going to say the best woman, but I was like, that's not what they told me.
Well, it depends. There's, coming from the guy who's not married, and I've only ever been involved in one wedding, to be fair, you can have a best woman if the best man is your female friend. You can have a man of honor if the bride's closest friend is a man. It doesn't, you can really say anything, but in this case, yeah, it's a bridesmaid. It's a bridesmaid. Well, the main bridesmaid is maid of honor.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. So, anyways, a few days later, Christy got into an argument with Taylor. Christy had decided that she was going to ground Taylor and not let her see her fiancé. Jason came and told Christy that she couldn't ground a 22-year-old grown-ass woman.
No.
What?
That's not how that works.
Yeah, yeah. So anyways, this entire event angered Christy more than it would a rational person. And then it made her even angrier when she realized that Jason didn't see her point of view and agreed with Taylor instead. Later that day, Christy and Jason again discussed divorce. Imagine how angry this would have made Christy. So, she's pissed off that she can't ground her daughter. Then her husband decided to side with her daughter, which that was rational because she's 22. Come on, who are you trying to ground, really? And then Jason was like, let's talk about the divorce. When is this going to happen? This and this. So she was probably livid by the end of the day.
When something like that happens, maybe she quote unquote grounded her daughter, and then her and her daughter got into it, and then, whatever else is going on with Christy probably got heightened by that. And then Jason comes over and they're arguing. Whatever's going on with her gets heightened. And now they're angrily discussing divorce. You should never talk about
divorce
anything
when you're
like that.
Angry. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. You
exactly.
should come to the table with no emotion. I mean, you have your regular emotion, but...
So I'm going to put up for Jason here. I think it was just like he had it. It was like, this is ridiculous. Are you kidding me? You know what I'm saying? I think he was just done. He's like, this girl is getting married in 2 days and you're trying to ground her. You're being ridiculous,
Not this girl. This grown-ass woman is getting married in 2 days.
Yeah, I think he was just done. So, I mean, I could see both of their from both of their sides. I could see it. So anyway, this is what happened that day. And a couple days later, Christy called a family meeting and planned it for June 24th. Everybody was on board with the family meeting because that's just something they did in their house. I've never had a family meeting, but that's just something they did in the house, had a family meeting where they talked about, issues they may have or upcoming whatever's going on. So then on June 24th, 2016, everyone got together to talk about whatever was on Christy's mind, whatever it was that she wanted to talk about. Jason figured that they were going to finally tell the girls about their upcoming divorce, that they'd been talking about divorce and wanted to get a divorce. And maybe, this is when she wants to finally tell the girls.
Let me guess. He was wrong.
Taylor probably thought, now this is my opinion, this is just me assuming here, Taylor probably thought that Christy wanted to talk about the argument that they just had and probably, tell her that it was going out of hand, talk about why she suddenly hates Taylor's fiance or apologize. Maybe that's what Taylor thought was going to happen. So either way, they all gathered for the meeting. Now, when Christy came in and she stood in front of her family and, they're sitting there looking up at her expectantly, okay, what's she going to say or whatever. But when they looked at her, they could tell she was quote unquote off. I don't know what you would call that, but that's what I call it, off. It's
distant?
Just something. No. If you know someone who has a history of mental illness, you kind of get used to the warning signs. No lie. Your loved one may look and sound, quote, normal to everyone else. No freaking lie. Everybody around you will be like, oh, nothing's wrong with him. Da, 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 da. And you're just like, no, don't say this to him or her. Don't do this, because I'm telling you, they're circling the drain. And you just see the warning signs.
So you're saying that whatever red flag she had, the family could see them clear as day.
They could see it, yeah. But if she was like at the grocery store, we who don't know her would just be like, oh yeah, hi Miss Sheats, how you doing today? Oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? We wouldn't see anything wrong with her. But they saw something was, quote, off with her. So being that they saw that, they braced themselves for the episode ahead, which that is exactly what you do. You brace yourself like, crap, here it comes. It's coming. Give it a couple days. It could be any second now. You brace yourself. So as they waited for Christy to start speaking, Christy pulled out a gun instead. You know what time it is. Cliffhanger Kai's back to give you your weekly reminder to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And you know we will be grateful if you would leave us a 5-star review on the platform of your choice. Also, come on over and join us at our exclusive Lamb community at Patreon at www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. Once you become a subscriber, you get access to commercial-free episodes so you don't have to hear this interruption ever again. Crazy Crime Corner, Love Obsessions, Serial Killer Corner, Getting to Know the Hosts, Behind the Scene, True Crime Games, and so much more. We have so much fun over there, so come on and join us, starting at only $1 a month. But our most popular tier is the No Murder tier at only $5 a month. Don't miss out, www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, we'll give you 5 seconds to subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes over there. You know how much we like the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now, back to the show. Christy then pointed the gun at Taylor and fired.
Whoa!
Jason ran to save Taylor while at the same time yelling at Madison to get out. He dropped down over Taylor, so he has his whole body over his daughter, shielding her against Christy. Madison, instead of leaving, ran to call 911. At this point, on the 911 call, you could actually hear Jason begging Christy not to shoot the children. Quote, "Please don't point the gun at us. I beg you. Please put it away. I'm sorry. I promise you whatever you want." Now, I won't replay or relive the 911 call here. We'll actually have it posted in our private group on Patreon if you want to go hear it, but I'm not going to replay it here because if the family's listening, I don't want them traumatized by this, so I'm not going to play it here. While on the call, Madison began trying to leave the house. So remember, she called 911. While she's on the phone, she started trying to leave the house. Instead, her mother turned her attention towards her and shot her in the back. Madison kept going because, adrenaline and everything. So she kept going. She got through the front door, but she fell on the welcome mat right outside the door, and then she died. So she died right there, right outside the door. Oh. By this time, Taylor and her father had run out of the house. So, he's probably has her leaning on him and he's trying to run and kind of dragging her and she's trying to run too. And so they got out of the house and they were in the middle of the street. And by the time they were in the middle of the street, Christy caught up with them. Also at this time, because there's just so much going on, you know what I'm saying? So also at the same time, Taylor had grabbed the phone and called 911 as well. So this part can also be heard on the 911 call. And Christy fired again at Taylor with Jason begging her to stop. And then she went back inside the house. And at this point, Jason thought Christy was done. So we're going to rewind a little bit. At the point of the first shot, a neighbor had called 911 as well and was given a very shaky, very scared, and very shocked play-by-play as to what's happening. So there's 3 911 calls, and you could basically hear everything that was going on because you have Madison, then you had Taylor, and then you have the neighbor looking out his window saying what he's seeing. You know what I'm saying? So when Christy went back in the house, Jason picked up his daughter and started running down the street. However, by the time they reached the end of the street, Christy had come back out of the house with her gun in hand. So instead of being done, what had happened was she had actually run out of bullets and she had gone inside to reload. And so she came back outside now that she's ready. She's reloaded. She's ready to go. And she actually ran down to where Taylor and Jason were. But at the same time, the police were coming down the road. But you would think that this would jar her, hearing all the sirens and the cops come in and tires squealing and everything. This didn't stop her one bit.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if she has tunnel vision. If she's focused on doing what she's about to do, then you're not going to stop her.
Yeah, exactly. So even though all that was going on and you hear the sirens and everything like that, she kept running towards her husband and her daughter. And while the cops watched, Christy shot Taylor one more time. Now, I say while the cops watched, but I don't think they were just like, oh yeah, let me just grab a cup of coffee and watch. I think they were just so shocked that she blatantly did it in front of them. They were like, you know what I'm saying? Because they had just gotten there. They didn't.
Yeah, or they were like coming there, but they weren't there yet.
Exactly. And she just shot Taylor again in front of them. And then after she shot Taylor, she turned her attention towards the cops, who were at this point yelling at her to drop the weapon. You know what I'm saying? And instead of dropping it, Christy smiled and then turned and looked at Jason. And she started to raise her gun again, but then the cop fired, hit Christy. He fired once, hit her, and she died immediately. Now, it's not like she was raising it towards her husband. She wasn't going to kill her husband. I'll tell you more about that soon. But she just raised the gun and she got shot. EMTs were also on the scene and they immediately airlifted Taylor to Memorial Hermann Hospital trying to save her life. At this point, she had been riddled by 3 gunshots in 3 different parts of her body. Unfortunately, a little while after arriving at the hospital, Taylor succumbed to her wounds and she died.
Oh, no.
Even though Jason was taken to the hospital as well, he didn't need to be seen by a doctor as he was not physically injured. However, he was admitted due to the level of emotional distress that he was experiencing, which I couldn't even remotely imagine. I couldn't even put myself in his shoes. I couldn't.
That's gotta be terrifying. I mean,
it's not terrifying. I mean, yeah, it's terrifying, but your grief is overcoming that terror. That's your children. Unless you have a child, you have no clue what the frick I'm talking about.
Would you say that it's terrifying to have your daughter wounded that badly?
Well, that would be terrifying, yes.
Yeah.
And then you're scared that she'll die, you're hoping she'll survive, or, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking from his perspective, he's talking about getting a divorce and both of his children are now dead. I can't put into words how I feel about that if that would have happened to me.
I couldn't. The level of hatred I would have towards the person who did this. But then they're dead, so it's like...
Yeah, you can't tell them how you feel about it. You can't confront them about it.
Yeah.
You can't even really, like, for people who prefer to do this, you can't even tell them you forgive them. Like, they're just gone.
Yeah.
Every outlet you had for trying to get through this and...
Closure. Yeah.
It's gone. Yeah, closure is gone.
Yeah.
You're on your own with that, and I can't imagine having to go through that myself.
Yeah, I couldn't even imagine. So today, after all of this, Jason is still healing from the devastation. He'd appeared on the Dr. Oz show in September 20th, 2016. And while on the show, he said, quote, "I have nothing good to say about her. Nobody who loves her children can do that to her children." End quote. And he also said, quote, "No matter what I do, where I run, no matter what I occupy my time with, I will never be able to get those thoughts out of my head." End quote. See, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't imagine. But, you know, he's taking it day by day, step by step, and, you know, getting better mentally. So he's not staying in that state of depression. Now, you may be wondering why Christy didn't kill Jason, but what he said is he believes that she did all of this to make him suffer for wanting a divorce. Jason recalls that she actually had so much time to shoot him too, or just to shoot him, period, but she never even tried to. She purposefully only went for the kids.
That is fucked up.
because, and this is him guessing, and I kind of agree with him, because she felt that he dismissed her feelings. So remember I said that in the beginning, she agreed with the divorce because he felt like he wasn't taking her feelings seriously. So because she felt that he dismissed her feelings of loss after her mom and her grandfather died, she probably wanted him to see what it felt like to be without those who you love the most. So this is probably why she did this and didn't even try and kill him at all.
So, like, I understand.
That is twisted.
I know we probably can't explain her thinking because she obviously wasn't thinking straight, but it's messed up. She's like, I lost my parental figure and a grandparental figure, and you didn't understand that. I'm going to kill our daughters so you see what it's like.
Right? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's not gonna make sense because she wasn't thinking straight. It's not gonna make sense. That's like you said, that is majorly fucking twisted.
Yeah, that's wow. I mean, like, if you're thinking about take away what you love the most, shouldn't that be what you love the most too? I understand you love your mom and your grandfather, but shouldn't you love your children more? Like, we're thinking like rational people. She actually had mental health issues. So
yeah, there are certain people who just aren't fit to be parents. I'm sorry, it's a fact.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like she was one of them.
Before, she was an amazing parent. Nobody had anything bad to say about her, but then this, like, I don't know. Whatever happened, a flip switched and she just turned into, somebody else. A switch flipped.
Okay.
So that is a twisted and disturbed case of Christy Sheats. Now, let us know what you think in the comments below. Or if you want your comments heard on air, head on over to our website, www.murderandlove.com, and click on our brand new shout out system, or SOS for short. It's right there on the homepage. You can't miss it. If you are ready to sing like a bird, then shoot us an SOS. Record your comment, and it will be played at the end of the next episode. I also want to say this. If you know anyone who has a history of mental health issues, or even if they don't have a history of it and is just now starting to pop up, then please try your damnedest to get them help. In this climate we live in, it's almost impossible. Like, I deal with this in people that I know. It is almost impossible to get them help. People do not care about mental health issues. I don't know what the freak people's problem is about mental health issues, but they really do not take it seriously.
There's a stigma against it that a lot of people can't see past. That's the problem.
I'm not even just talking about just regular civilians. I'm talking about people who actually deal with mental health, the government, how the government has everything set up. It's just, it's set up to work against people with mental health issues. Like, it is really not there to help. It is so annoying. But still, just try to fight hard for your loved ones and try to get them the help they need and try to be the one to be there for them. It's going to be hard. Nobody's telling you it's going to be easy. It is going to be hard as frick, but do not give up on them. And that's what I have to say about that. Now, if you like this horrible, terrible, no good, very bad episode, then you're a sick individual and you need to seek help yourself. For everyone else who was as disturbed as I was, and you could hear Rick was, then head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and rate us 5 stars. You can also download Good Pods.
No, Kai. You gotta do your little 5-star review jingle. Lighten up the mood a little bit.
My 5-star review jingle?
Yeah, 5-star review. That thing you always do when you say it.
I don't know. I guess I wasn't in the mood, so it's not in my head. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, you can also download Good Pods and rate us there too. You can say whatever you want in the description, but it helps bring us up in the chart so others can find us just like you did. Follow us on social media at facebook.com/relationshipcrime, Instagram at loveandmurder. Join our Facebook fan group by searching Love and Murder fan page in Google or Facebook, or by simply clicking in the show notes below. Find our awesome merch by going to our website, www.murderandlove.com, and clicking on our shop in the menu above. Speaking of which, we're actually going to be cleaning out our merch shop and bringing in new merch. If you want to have a hand in what we're selling and what we're not selling, head on over to our Patreon and become an exclusive lamb, and you can tell us what we're going to sell and what we're not going to sell. www.patreon.com/loveandmurder. And an easy and free way to help us out is by simply sharing this episode. Share with your mom, share with your sister, share with your father, share with your fiance, share, 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 share. And as always, we end each episode by reminding you...
Lock your doors at night.
No, Rick. Well, yes, but also that it's
all love
and no murder, y'all. Bye.